You're watching a commercial. It's about a dog. The dog finds its owner after being lost for 3 days, and before the reunion even fully plays out on screen, your eyes are already burning, your throat tightens, and then, quietly, almost against your will, a tear rolls down your face over a commercial about a dog you've never met. And somewhere in the room, someone looks at you and says, "Are you crying?" If you're someone who cries easily at movies, at music, at a stranger's kindness, at literally nothing, at everything, the world has probably handed you a label: too sensitive, overly emotional, a lot. And you may have spent years quietly apologizing for the way your eyes betray you at the worst possible moments. But here's what nobody tells you. The psychology behind easy crying is one of the most fascinating, deeply human things a brain can do. And it says something about you that most people spend their whole lives wishing they could access. Let's talk about it. First, let's just get this out of the way. Crying easily is not weakness. I know you've heard that, but the reason it doesn't always land is because nobody explains the neuroscience behind it. So let me do that. Your brain has this ancient, deeply wired system called the limbic system. Think of it as the emotional engine room. It processes everything you feel before your logical brain even gets a chance to weigh in. In people who cry easily, research suggests this system is particularly reactive, not broken, not overloaded, reactive. It responds faster, more completely, and with more physical expression than in people who don't cry as often. Your body isn't malfunctioning, it's actually working really well. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There's a concept in psychology called emotional empathy, the ability to not just understand what someone else is feeling, but to actually feel it with them. Studies from the University of Haifa found that people with higher empathy levels have stronger mirror neuron activity. These are the brain cells that light up when we observe someone else experiencing something, almost as if we're living it ourselves. So when you cry at a movie, you're not confused about what's real. Your mirror neurons are so well tuned that your nervous system responds to fictional grief, fictional reunion, fictional joy, as if it were your own. You are, in the most literal neurological sense, feeling what the character feels. That's not a flaw. That's a rare form of human perception. But let's be honest, it's not always poetic. Sometimes you cry in a meeting. Sometimes you tear up when someone raises their voice, even slightly, even if you're not sad, just startled. Sometimes you cry out of frustration when you really just wanted to seem calm and confident. And that part, that's worth understanding too. When your body cries from overwhelm, not sadness, not empathy, but sheer emotional overload, it's often your nervous system doing something actually quite clever. Tears contain stress hormones, literally. Scientists have found that emotional tears carry higher concentrations of cortisol and other stress-related compounds than tears from, say, cutting an onion. So when you cry from frustration or overwhelm, your body is physically flushing stress out. It's a pressure valve. Your system reaches capacity, and crying is how it resets. People who rarely cry aren't necessarily calmer on the inside. They may just be holding more in, and that stress has to go somewhere else, into tension headaches, into irritability, into 2 a.m. doom scrolling. Your body just takes a more honest route. Now here's something most people never consider. The cultures and families we grow up in shape whether we cry freely or not, just as much as our neurology does. In many Western, particularly masculine-coded environments, crying has been trained out of people through shame. Big boys don't cry. Don't be so dramatic. Pull yourself together. And what that conditioning does, gradually, quietly, is teach the nervous system to suppress its own signals, to disconnect from emotional experience before it can reach the surface. People who grew up in environments that allowed emotional expression, where crying was normalized or even safe, often carry that permission with them into adulthood. They haven't lost control. They never lost access. And then there's the personality dimension. Psychologists have found a strong overlap between people who cry easily and a trait called openness to experience, one of the big 5 personality traits.
People high in openness tend to feel art more deeply, respond to beauty more intensely, and find meaning in places others walk past. They're the ones who cry at a piece of music, not because they're sad, but because the music did something that language couldn't. It arrived somewhere deep, and the body's only honest response was tears. That's not emotional excess, that's sensitivity functioning as a kind of perception, a sixth sense for meaning. Think about the people in your life who never cry, and think about whether emotionally available, easy to connect with, or deeply present are words you'd use for them. For some, sure, but for many, emotional suppression and emotional distance come packaged together. The wall that keeps tears in keeps intimacy out. And meanwhile, people who cry easily tend to form deeper bonds, feel more attuned to social dynamics, and, this is backed by research, are often rated by others as more trustworthy, because there's something in the human brain that recognizes this person is not hiding from what they feel. That is rare, and that is safe. Of course, there are times when easy crying becomes something worth paying attention to, when it's connected to anxiety, depression, or unprocessed grief. If you feel like you're crying constantly and it's tied to a persistent heaviness or hopelessness, that's worth exploring with someone you trust. Sensitivity and suffering can look similar from the outside, but they feel very different from the inside. You'll know the difference. But for most people who cry easily, the only thing that needs changing is the story you've been told about it. Here's where I want you to land after this video. You are not too much. You are not broken or weak or a lot. You are someone whose nervous system is doing something extraordinary, translating the world into feeling with a kind of fluency that most people lose by the time they're teenagers. The world keeps telling you to toughen up, but maybe the braver thing, the rarer thing, is to stay exactly as open as you are, to keep letting things land, to keep feeling what most people have learned to skim past. Your tears are not a leak, they're proof that something got through. If this video described you or someone you love, drop it in the comments. And if you're curious about the psychology of emotional sensitivity, empathy, and how feelings shape the way we move through the world, stick around. There's a lot more where this came from.